I'm here today to talk about the Colorado Street Bridge, the over 100-year-old beautiful bridge connecting Eagle Rock with Pasadena. It is one of the most beautiful spots in the county, one of the most stunning architectural works around, one of the most historic places in the city, and one of the most troubled settings in LA history. The Colorado Street Bridge, which overlooks the Arroyo Seco, has been the scene of dozens of suicides, not dozens, more than 100 suicides through its history. I wrote dozens before I really started doing the research.
Like 10 dozens. You know, I never really thought about it. I guess it does connect Eagle Rock to Pasadena.
Before the freeway was there, it was how you got between... I'll get to it.
It's just a rope?
Yeah, so there's been over 100 suicides at this bridge. So much so that locals have a nickname for it, if you're unaware, the Suicide Bridge.
How do they come up? How do these locals come up with... These locals are so clever.
They're
I don't know how they
clever.
do it.
They really just put two and two together.
Sidebar, Greg. These stupid Pasadena bumpkins. They don't know how to name
These
anything.
old rich hillbillies.
Do they even have an art museum there? They have a good one. They have a really good one.
You'll have to look at it every time you watch the Rose Parade. It's like literally like right
free
there.
advertising for them. It's a scam. Those bumpkins.
Idiots. Along with the tragedies come many reports the bridge and the Arroyo Seco lying underneath it are home to several ghosts. The Colorado Street Bridge was built in 1913, so travelers could cross the Arroyo Seco with greater ease. So let's talk about a little bit about the area. People were settling in Pasadena by 1873, and by the next year had begun growing crops, which included wheat, barley, olive trees, grapevines, and citrus trees.
Sounds like Christmas dinner to me.
No substantial food.
Please, more barley.
No, don't squeeze the grapes into wine. I'll just have the grapes.
I'll take care of it myself.
Yeah. Citrus production would become the most prominent crop in Pasadena by the end of the 19th century. Leading the way for settlers was Dr. Thomas Eliot and his brother-in-law, Daniel Berry.
You know that brother-in-law you've been looking for?
Well, listen to this, and it's him just unpeeling an orange. It's orange pretty good.
Is that barley? Is that the unmistakable sound of barley? You won't like it, but your grandchildren are going to build a bridge over it.
This wheat craze is really sweeping the kids, isn't it? They were the first two to settle in Pasadena. The Transcontinental Railroad, which was completed in 1886, helped the growing and shipping of citrus fruits grow into prominence and then brought Pasadena along with it. And by stinky old 1891, Pasadena was responsible for more shipping of oranges than any other city. The promise of land to grow crops and get wealthy, and the pleasant climate and the healing nature of the air all combined in appealing to Midwesterners, and soon
appealing. Like barley.
Like you peel wheat.
As I used to sit around with Father Christmas and peel the barley.
You open your gift and it's just oranges. Like, exactly what I wanted.
That's kind of what Christmas was back then.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no.
You got me dinner? Wow.
I always say that, like, back then, having a birthday was a big deal if you lived past, like, the child mortality rate. They're like, oh, my God, you're alive. Get him a present. Put candles on a cake for this kid.
No medicine, though.
I don't want you getting weak.
Did you say wheat?
So all of the air and the crops and people were getting wealthy, and all of this was just drawing, boosterism was drawing people to Pasadena. Yeah. And it was becoming like a legitimate city full of people, not just pumpkins. And this city, Pasadena, was really rivaling Los Angeles in advancement. To deal with a lot of the visitors and newly arrived people, some commercial businesses and hotels were built, which included the Fair Oaks, the Colorado, Echo Mountain House, which burned down, the Raymond, and the Arroyo del Vista, which is now the United States Courts of Appeals. It's the one that's sitting like at the edge of Pasadena. It's a really dramatic. So when you're crossing the Colorado Street Bridge, that's what you see, that big Wayne Manor. I always call it Wayne Manor because I think they use it for something. Now's a good time to talk about the Arroyo Seco area, which is Spanish for dry creek. There's two high ridges, the east end of Eagle Rock and the west end of Pasadena. So if you wanted to get, no cars at the time, if you had like horses or were walking, you had to come down.
Your horse has to jump. You better get one of those jumpers.
Let him sleep all night. Give him a lot of water.
Get him the air horseshoes that he's been wanting for so long.
You would have to go down and then go back up.
Right. Imagine.
Oh, yeah. There's a restaurant called Stony Point, which is at the Eagle Rock end. It's like a really old, I don't know, it's not an Italian restaurant. I don't think it's an Italian restaurant. It's a really old restaurant.
Are you like trying to sing a Billy Joel song right now? And you had a bottle of barley, a bottle of wheat.
But he was saying like this restaurant's been here just as long as before the bridges, when people, this was the last restaurant before you went down the hill. I'm like, 18th. So one is Eagle Rock, the other is Pasadena. Below that is a canyon-like area area where now the Rose Bowl sits. That's Arroyo Seco. The Rose Bowl is on the lower level of Pasadena. That's like the Arroyo Seco.
The football field?
The Rose Bowl is on the lower level of the Arroyo,
but it's not like under the bridge.
No, it's not directly under the bridge, but the area that's underneath the bridge also houses the Rose Bowl. If I'm trying to make you picture Eagle Rock, Pasadena.
I pictured it perfectly, but then you throwing the Rose Bowl in there, I can't imagine that at all now. I guess I don't really know where the Rose Bowl is.
I'm literally describing it. Eagle Rock here, Pasadena here, both high ridges. On the lower level, underneath the bridge, is Arroyo Seco, where you would also find the Rose Bowl.
Okay, so I follow the Arroyo Seco, and I get to the Rose Bowl.
The Bros Bowl.
The Rose Bowl.
The Rose Bowl, yeah. According to my trusty Los Angeles Encyclopedia, the Arroyo Seco was favored by a community of wealthy individuals, artists, and intellectuals. And in 1903, the Arroyo Seco area was also favored by President Theodore Roosevelt, praising its natural beauty and urging residents to retain the parklands of Arroyo Seco, which they did.
By building a bridge over it.
By building a bridge over it.
By building a Rose Bowl.
I need a football. He would like the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, we misunderstood his. You should have like a protection of all these roses and plants.
Like a bowl of roses. Oh, I think I know what you mean.
Keep this place as it is. A bowl of roses. A football
Loud
stadium.
And clear.
We got you,
We got you, buddy. Now, later in the 19th century, the Scoville family built a dam in the Arroyo Seco to provide irrigation to the area and to cross the waters of the dam. I guess there was also a creek too that they wanted a crossing.
Doesn't sound very Seco.
And the Scoville Bridge was a small wooden truss bridge. So bridges were needed so pedestrians and carriages could cross the waters of the dam and the creek, and also they would move lumber. So the bridge was built, and it was a little bridge at the bottom of the road. Like basically, you weren't crossing ridge to ridge. You'd still have to go down, cross, and then come back up.
Just as inconvenient. You just won't get wet this way.
Absolutely. And if you were wet in 1873,
that was a death sentence.
Wet all day. Wet for literally days. Hypothermia. How did Casper die? Hypothermia. Okay, I think he had polio.
He looked like it.
So this was 1873. Like I said, the bridge was known as the Scoville Bridge, which was later replaced by the Parker Mayberry Bridge. And from what I read, this bridge is the predecessor to the Colorado Street Bridge because it's at the same site, but lower, like a lower version of it, a lower wooden version of it. Now see here, Pasadena was a fast-growing city, and because of its population and prominence, it took leaps and bounds in advancement. 10 years into the 20th century, automobiles were starting to become more fixture in metropolitan areas, and the lower Scoville Bridge just wouldn't cut it as a major thoroughfare. So a new bridge had to be built over the Arroyo Seco area, and it would have to connect Eagle Rock with Pasadena straight off without having to dilly-dally around the winding roads and ascending the banks.
Okay.
This is just history about why they built this bridge.
Did they not trust the brakes on a car from the year 1900 to go down a gorge?
Have you seen the Flintstones? Do you remember how they brake? Henry Ford?
You
think he's
Henry
worried
Ford
about
literally
that?
took us out of the Stone Age.
You had the Wooga. You had putting coal into it. I have literally no idea what a car from 1913 is like.
The Flintstones took place in 1890. Did you know that? That's what it used to be like. And then the good man that he was, Henry Ford, came along and killed all the dinosaurs.
Something about eugenics. I don't remember what he was going, but he killed all the dinosaurs, which were subhuman. In 1911, city officials and the city council decided to move forward with plans for a lavish concrete bridge, the largest reinforced concrete bridge in the world at the time. I think they just meant highest. What they didn't know was that they were creating a bridge of doom. Oh God. Let's talk about the bridge before we get to the spookies. Construction on the bridge began in 1912 and wrapped in 1913, taking 18 months to construct. The engineer was named John Drake Mercereau, and the plans were designed by the Waddell and Harrington architectural firm, I believe out of Kansas. The bridge cost $191,000 to build. The Colorado Street Bridge rises 150 feet off the ground, spans 1,468 feet across, making it the largest concrete bridge in the world at the time of its construction, which I already said. Another notable feature is the curved nature of the bridge's design. It's curved 50 degrees to the south, which was utilized to help the bridge's reinforcement. I guess if they curved it, it would stand stronger.
So I guess it's like
It's got a
leaning
little
against.
bit of, it's like supporting itself on another
It's
end
like
of it.
me on a skateboard.
It's like you on a skateboard where you throw your big gut in the middle and you just your arms are just like slowly wobbling around it.
Look, Greg, people have an image of me when they listen to my voice. They don't need to know about my big gut. I take a lot of effort to edit out the sound of my big gut rumbling when I'm talking.
Around. When you swing, a bunch of stuff knocks off the table. I know, I get it. We all know.
Whenever I do quote fingers, you can hear a ripple.
It's also 28 feet wide, the roadway. Cars used to be able to park on the bridge, and it has a 5-foot wide sidewalk. And it also has, I forgot how many alcoves. The alcoves are maybe the problem. The Colorado Street Bridge has a grand Beaux Arts style, particularly seen in the detailings, the railings, the light standards, and the arches that lie underneath the bridge as support connecting the pillars. So the bridge is a bunch of arches, and those are tied to the pillars that hold it up. It's a very beautiful bridge.
It's a nice looking bridge, especially on like a dark, foggy night. It's very spooky.
It's very spooky. It's a very spooky.
When I'm not allowed to drive on it for whatever reason, and I'm on the whatever 210 or is it the 210?
It's the 134 as it becomes the 210. It's like 50 different freeways all at once, really. When you get spit out, you're like, which one was I on?
Yet another reason why I always get lost in Pasadena.
Yeah, it's just go until you hit Lake.
I still go down the gorge.
One of the first and certainly most unconfirmed rumors comes during the bridge's construction. There's an urban legend.
Rumors.
An urban legend that when the concrete was being poured and forming the support pillars, one of the workers, said to be Mexican, lost his balance and fell into the wet concrete. His absence
like me on a skateboard.
Like you on a skateboard. His absence went unnoticed, like you on a skateboard. Thus, no one came to his rescue, and he was entombed in the pillar, where his body remains to this day.
Wow. I mean, how do you check for that? Like you can't.
Nope.
Hello?
Yeah, leave me in here. Did Edgar Allan Poe do this? Son of a bitch.
I think in ancient whatever days, I think they would make a point to throw workers into the foundation of the thing as like a sacrifice to keep the building safe or something. So I'm not ruling out Teddy Roosevelt on this one.
Why are you putting coins in my eyes?
But there's got to be a way to, like, with modern technology, like sonar or something, this concrete's pregnant.
We got to knock this whole bridge down.
That's upsetting.
It's very upsetting.
The worst part is that nobody noticed.
Yeah, that's the harder part for me, is that nobody noticed something that no one noticed me. That's the more pain than being entombed in concrete.
He's a guy. He was Mexican. I just see myself as this guy.
His is said to be one of the many ghosts that linger around the bridge, luring people to their demise. While there was an accident during construction, this is confirmed in August of 1913, no one was buried in concrete. 3 workers fell 140 feet when a piece of the concrete collapsed, and one of the workers did fall in wet cement, but he was pulled out and broke an arm and a leg from the fall. Another worker lost his eyesight permanently, and John Visco died instantly. These are 3 people that died during the construction.
Well, no, I thought 2 of them survived.
Oh, sorry. One of these, you're right. One of these guys died. The 2 of them, you're right.
With broken arms.
I needed to stare at you in the eyes and say died. And
I know you were like making such strong eye contact, telling me 2 of them survived, and then told me all these men died.
You know how to do math, right? Because these 3 men who are already dead, their lives depend on it. Construction was halted for a while, but ultimately resumed without any more fatalities. But the legacy of fatalities on the suicide bridge were not far away. Here we go.
Okay, we're in the spooky section.
This isn't spooky as much as just very, very unsettling.
Okay, it'll get spooky later. Right?
Yeah. So here we go. In 1915, 2 years after the bridge was completed, the suicides start. The body of 23-year-old Joseph Roma was found at the bottom of the bridge. Roma stated to his brother Raphael that he was going for a walk. It's not stated outright in the paper that it was suicide. It's kind of debated, but there was no note, and the paper speculates that maybe he felt dizzy while standing on the bridge and could have fallen over. They're kind of giving him that. But this may very well be the first suicide case on the bridge.
Are you going to get into, stop me if you're about to talk about it, but isn't it not high enough to kill most people?
Yeah. Because of the limited writings on this, you mostly read about people who succeed in it. But I know that a lot of people, there have been enough people who land and are like, God damn it. I'm doing a lot worse than I was before. The paper also mentions that his brother Raphael referred to Joseph as an invalid. I don't know what 1913 that counts as, but his brother called him that. And that might be a reason for taking his own life. So the paper kind of left it in the air. Then 10 days later, June 7th, 1915, Alfred MacDonald, 20 years old from Canada, killed himself at the Colorado Street Bridge, although he's not one of the jumpers. MacDonald had heard about Roma's suicide, and once the news hit him, he told his friends that he's going to go when the time came, or that's how he's going to go when the time came. The time came quickly when he learned that he had tuberculosis, like 10 days later. For him, that was it. So he was at dinner with a friend that night, the night of his diagnosis, and smiling said, I shall go very soon like that poor fellow did last week. If sometime you miss me, you will find me where they found him. And after dinner, he disappeared, but it wasn't until later that his friend realized that he was gone. And when his friends went looking for him, they found MacDonald hanging by a short rope, having been dead for some hours.
So he didn't know the first guy.
He didn't know him. He just heard the news.
He heard his story and was like, that's for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't understand how
tuberculosis works.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how TB works. For some reason, these two deaths, the first two suicides at the Colorado Street Bridge, are not lumped in with the streak of suicides that many websites list. Many will state the first suicide occurred in 1919, which is not true, but I think that 1919 is a start of a very startling and constant pattern, because between 1919 and the end of 1937, there were 95 suicides.
What?
There has continued to be suicides up to very recently.
Wait a minute.
But this stretch of 18 years saw a huge concentrations of suicide that unnerved the residents of LA and has given the bridge a very eerie aura.
Wait a minute. That's like what, 14 years?
18 years.
18 years and 95. That's what that math is impossible.
There's not even enough days.
That's like 2 suicides a year. Am I doing the math right? I don't think so.
We'll talk about.
No, that's like 4 suicides. 5?
I think
4.
Just keep shouting numbers at me. If you space them out, yeah.
You promised everybody earlier I could do math.
Do math out loud
I'm proving
sort of figure it out.
As there's probably a lot of audio proof of it, I don't think I can. That's crazy.
It's very, like, I didn't realize that. I knew what they called it. I've always known what they called it. I knew what they called. I knew the nickname before I knew the real name of the bridge.
When you at the beginning of this said there were dozens, I was like, that sounds about right.
When I was wrapping it all up and kind of reading like summations from everybody, I think the number 150 was tossed around. I know it's more than 100 for sure. So the streak of suicides begins in November of 1990. What people consider like the 1919 first one, which I don't know why the other two aren't lumped in. According to some websites who don't like to list sources, which is very problematic, but 3 websites said that the first person to use the bridge to commit suicide was Smith Osgood, a 70-year-old man from Huntington Park. He was said to have walked on the bridge, stopped a passerby, and hand him a note, instructing him not to read it, but to instead go to the nearest police station and give it to them. The passerby walked off, and Osgood climbed onto the ledge and leapt to his death. Now, there's no registry of suicides, and I also don't want to sit one by one and talk about each one, but we can say that they consistently happened through the 20s, but the suicides entered into a unreal and sinister decade in the 1930s when the Great Depression hit, and the economic collapse of the country was said to, excuse my phrasing, push many despondent people to the edge. During one period in the 1930s, there was an average of almost 1 fatality at the suicide bridge a month, with the worst year being 1935, which saw 12 deaths a year, concentrated 1 month instead of statistically throughout.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. It wasn't evenly distributed.
Yes, that's what it is. It wasn't evenly distributed. It wasn't like, hey, it's your turn. 1933 saw 9 deaths, 10 in 1934 and 1937, and 9 in 1936. According to police records, the youngest jumper was 17 and the oldest was 76. One of the most notorious stories, I've been waiting a while to tell you this. One of the most notorious stories happens in May of 1937 when 22-year-old Myrtle Ward went to the suicide bridge holding her 3-year-old baby Jeanette in her arms. Myrtle found a spot and threw the 3-year-old off the bridge. She then stepped up on the railing and leapt to her death. But when the authorities arrived on the scene, they found Jeanette, the baby, alive.
What?
Having landed in the thick of tree branches and surviving the ordeal relatively unscathed. Later in life, Jeanette herself at
like Rockabye Baby. That's a very lucky baby.
That's a very lucky baby.
I'm expecting you to say, and that baby grew up to be...
Later in life, Jeanette herself, at the time of the entry's writing, when I have a sheriff deputy's like true crime book. At the time of that writing, she was a wife and mother of 2 girls. She found herself living just 5 miles from the suicide bridge where she was thrown as a baby.
Did she know?
Yeah, she knew.
Okay.
That was the thing that threw me. Was there was a picture of her smiling?
Use a different phrase.
When I was going through the book, I saw a photo of a woman and the bridge behind her. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I read it. I'm like, oh, that's the baby.
Oh, that's so weird.
You're the baby.
They posed her for a picture in front of the bridge? Come on.
If you don't remember it, it can't be as scary as like a traumatic memory that you can't, like, I'm sure it's very different if like, I kind of remember it.
I'm still waiting for you to say, and she grew up.
She didn't
grow up. Right.
She grew up to survive.
Who let the dogs out?
In 1937, Mabel Seeley, a socialite and president of the LA Junior League, parked her car on the bridge, walked over and climbed the railing. Passing motorists stopped and they were trying to talk her from jumping, but to no avail. She dove off in the bridge and died upon impact. The note found in her car read, "The conflict within myself makes for complete confusion. May peace reign in my absence." She was the 88th person to jump. By 1939, the concrete structure took on the nickname the Suicide Bridge.
1939?
39 is when they start calling it the suicide. After the 30s are over,
so
they're like,
crazy.
yeah.
So people have been calling that in this city for going on 80 years now.
Before World War II.
That's crazy. So I'm just imagining like someone in the 40s driving by.
Check out this.
Look at the suicide bridge. I'm going to go kill Hitler.
He's just loading a Luger. This one's for you, Hitler. So why Why did 1937 end the streak of suicides? Because that was the year of the first incarnation of the 8-foot suicide prevention fencing that went up along the concrete walls of the bridge. And while severely cutting down suicide attempts, the deaths continued nonetheless.
How?
I think that there's still some exposed areas that they can't put fencing near, and I think people are going there, and some people are just hopping the fence.
Yeah, I guess it's only 8 feet.
They're going to find a way, yeah. To this day, the suicide prevention fencing is being updated and redesigned, constantly redesigned, trying to find out something preventative and effective, but also something that fits the aesthetic, because by this point, I feel like I'm being crass when I say this, but we all know what the fencing's about. Like it doesn't serve two purposes. There's only one purpose.
What beautiful fencing.
What's that for? God.
Well, why don't they do like what the Golden Gate Bridge has and put like netting under it?
Yeah, I've thought about that too. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I would be afraid of like thrill seekers though. Not to be crass. But
do people do that? And I mean, no one's jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge for the thrill because they know they're going to land in the net.
I mean, I don't know this at all, but I feel like they have to find something aesthetically that fits, that's also preventative. That way you don't have to think about it. You don't have to look at a fencing and be like, you know why they put the fencing up is because people won't stop jumping off.
Well, a net, you don't, I mean,
the net,
if you're not looking down, then you won't see the net.
Very true. I cannot argue with you.
This has always been my pitch for nets.
Me, John Net. Grandson of the inventor of the net.
Grandson of Skynet.
So not everybody who jumps, it should be said, dies. In 1942, a 36-year-old man jumped from the bridge and landed on the roof of a wooden hut in the arroyo and suffered leg injuries.
What's the wooden hut doing there?
I have no idea. I think that you can't see. There's something because there's trees. I bet he's like...
But people are... maybe in the 40s, people were squatting down there. So.
Yeah, it's not far enough. And it's on a bank, too. So you have to, you can survive that fall.
Yeah, that's what I've always said. I've always heard, that's the suicide bridge. And then the next thing I would always hear is, you don't actually die.
Not everybody
dies
from it. Many people manage to survive the fall, sometimes succumbing to their injuries and dying later, sometimes not. It was stated that some land in the trees, and as they're landing, are desperately grabbing for the branches of the eucalyptus trees and the arroyo seco beneath. The bridge fell into disrepair and was closed throughout the 80s and into the 90s, so there was obviously a steep decline. When the bridge was reconstructed and improved, it reopened with new preventative fencing, but the suicides, although far less, continued. Since 2006, there have been 30 people who jumped from the bridge. In 2008, a man named Walter Garcia jumped off the bridge after stabbing his estranged wife and his mother-in-law to death. In 2015, 40-year-old Sam Sarpong, a British-American actor and model, had a 7-hour standoff with police on the bridge before he jumped to his death. In 2017, 8 people took their lives on the bridge, not at once.
In 1 year, 8 people?
Yeah.
What happened in don't know.
In 2018, 3 people jumped. In September,
what happened in 2016 that might have made people really downtrodden?
That really drove people to the edge. In September of 2018, police spent 13 hours successfully talking someone down from jumping from the bridge. And that's when they decided on redesigning the fencing once again. But in April of 2019, a passerby found the body of a man underneath the bridge. His shoes were located on top of the bridge, which people were just kind of putting 2 and 2 together and he jumped. No idea.
What?
I don't know idea. No idea.
But I want to ask it.
I know you do. I thought of the same thing too. There's just some things that don't make any sense.
I guess.
In April of 2021, a city employee found the body, April of this year, found a body of a man underneath the bridge, and it's suspected that he jumped. The city of Pasadena is still weighing in and redesigning new preventative fencing for the alcoves where many people jump from. It's the little area, like the little indent areas.
Yeah.
So what is it about this bridge?
But why would it make a difference if you get rid of the alcoves?
I think they're just trying to prevent people from going in the... I have no idea. I know the alcoves are the problem, but I don't know what they want to do with the alcoves.
Look, they're looking for a lot of different ways when the answer is right under their noses. Literally, it's called a net. It seems so simple. Why are they talking about we'll straighten the bridge, and then what if we make the bridge higher? Just put a net.
A net would
take care of it.
A net would take care of a lot of the problem. So what is it about this bridge? Now, according to a Pasadena news article, in 1921, the Colorado Street Bridge was featured in the Charlie Chaplin film The Kid. In that movie, a young woman contemplates leaping from the bridge, which is an incredibly overused trope in old movies, but I guess it's just what happened to a lot of people, and they were either desensitized to it or they did not understand mental health at all, and they're like, she's sad, so she killed her. It was just a thing that happened in old movies whenever someone lost money.
wonderful life.
It's a wonderful life. Anyways, Chaplin again used the Colorado Street Bridge in 1931 in City Lights, in which he convinces a distraught man not to jump.
But the deaths were happening by then. So
but according to legend, this is in 1931 at the dawn of the worst decade of the jumping.
Unless they were evenly distributed.
According to legend, after the film's release, people began jumping from the bridge, almost inspired by the film. According to one estimation, 79 people jumped to their deaths from the bridge during the Great Depression.
So you're blaming Charlie Chaplin for this? Is that what I'm getting here? Because I went to the film museum.
I saw his cane. I won't stand for this. Reading about the bridge, it also reminded me. Did you watch that documentary about the legacy of suicides at the Golden Gate Bridge? Did you watch that documentary?
I didn't watch that sounds so depressing.
It was one of the most depressing things I've ever seen.
But I know the gist.
You get the gist of it. There's one survivor that, when I was reading about this, I was thinking about this survivor, and that guy's story is wild. It's like most unbelievable stories, but a guy who survived jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge. But according to him, when he was suffering from depression, he was on a trip to San Francisco, and as soon as he saw the bridge, he thought, that's the place. I'm gonna kill myself there. There was just a weird allure and attraction and compulsion to a place. And maybe people have that with the Colorado Street Bridge. Maybe it's just a place.
I mean,
you look at it and you're just like, yeah, that.
These can't all be imitators.
No.
There's got to be something weird about it.
Yeah, really. And if we're talking about weird stuff, I feel like being really crass talking about suicides and being like, hey, here, creepy. 4 miles north at the edge of the upper Arroyo Park is the Devil's Gate Dam, what some consider to be the portal to hell. Yeah. Devil's Gate Dam is where, Jack Parsons' playground, as well as, missing kids have gone there, among other weird, creepy
I believe
things.
It was a no-no place for the native people.
That's right. It was. The Tongva had a problem there. I think the Spanish also were like, don't.
Even we don't like this.
Yeah.
And we're kind of devils.
We're bringing hell to everybody, and we don't like this. Are these two places connected? No idea. No idea. Literally the south end and the north end of the same park.
There's a lot of east, west, north, south going on here. Yeah. I feel like, let me do some quick math in my head. Hang on.
4.
Did Dan Brown write something about this?
And speaking of creepy things, the
answer's 3.
And speaking of creepy things, let's now talk about what lingers behind at the Suicide Bridge. It's said that there's a number of spirits that wander the bridge and the arroyo underneath, the most notorious being a spirit of a man on the bridge wearing wire-rimmed glasses.
What are those exactly?
Buddy Holly. If I'm thinking correctly, they're Buddy Holly. Some say they've seen a woman in a long flowing robe standing on a parapet before vanishing. There's the reports of a man who approaches visitors and whispers, "It's her fault." No further details are given on who.
Sounds like people who come over to my house.
Some say that when they're on the bridge, I think I need a ride home.
Can I sleep on your couch?
Some say that when they're on the bridge, they hear cries coming from the arroyo underneath, as well as other weird, unexplainable sounds coming from the dark. People have reported seeing a phantom figure wandering the riverbed beneath the bridge, which is also, I just got to say this, just aesthetically, not even ghosts or thinking about what happens on the bridge. Standing underneath the bridge is really scary. It's a really scary, big thing. There's something
under there?
Yeah, I've been under there. There's concrete and there's weird shadowy angles because of the arches and then the straight pillars, the scope and the size of the bridge. Not even thinking about deaths or ghosts, just being there. It's just a weird spot, one of those weird spots that you're like, something psychically is wrong with this spot. I don't know if the Colorado Street Bridge is haunted by ghosts, but it's haunted by its reputation. This is a really sad place. Not even thinking about creepy. This is a really sad place in Los Angeles, and I can never not think about the people who stood on the concrete walls of the bridge and jumped. Have you walked on the bridge before?
Can you go on the bridge?
You can, yeah.
You can't drive on the bridge, can you?
Yeah, you can drive on the bridge.
How come they won't let me on the bridge?
You don't know how to get on the bridge is a problem.
That's true. Whenever I try to get on the bridge, I'm on the 210.
Yeah. When I started dating Ada, maybe a year into dating,
First date, she's
like, we gotta go. There's a park at the east end of the bridge. It's a really nice place where we'll sit and hang out and have a picnic. And she showed me where to park to get there. And then once you're there, you're like, why don't I just walk on the bridge? I believe they have suicide prevention hotline numbers just at the beginning of every side of the bridge. But you can walk, I believe, on one side, obviously one side of it.
So the sidewalk is only on one side?
Yeah, I think the sidewalk now, if I can remember correctly, it's only on one side.
I can't even imagine where you would go to get on that bridge. And I see the bridge.
Yeah, a little bit closer than the Norton Simon is. But when you're walking on it or even driving or we're passing by on night on the freeway, I always think about it. I never not think about that.
Yeah, and I always point it out also. Like you have to call it I call it like I see it. When I see that bridge, I say suicide bridge.
Suicide bridge. That's it. I don't, when I'm crossing Vincent Thomas, I know that Tony Scott killed himself there, but I also am thinking a lot of weird other things like, how high am I? Is this safe? Look at all that freight stuff. Is this trafficking going on in these
freights?
Was
this bridge in Fast and the Furious?
But suicide bridge, I'm only ever thinking of one thing. Knocking the bridge down will not stop a suicidal person from attempting to end their life, but it might slow the urge or buy that person a day. If the city said, we're blowing up the edges and just keeping the middle so you could look at the bridge from a distance, I'd be like, yeah.
Not bad. Not a bad solution. But look, nets. You don't have to tear the whole bridge down. Just put a net.
A net. Solving everyone's problem.
I love that lady.
Because there is something about this bridge. There's just something about it. There's something that weird allure. And it's just a bad spot. It's a bad, I don't like to use the word juju. It's a bad juju spot.
Yeah, I don't like that word either.
I don't like it. I feel bad for using it right now, but I don't know what word I'm trying to go for.
You're thinking of Jewish person.
I should also say anyone struggling with suicidal thoughts can reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 24 hours a day in English and Spanish by calling 800-273-8255.